SaaS Therapy.
Welcome to SaaS Therapy, the show devoted to helping you save your most important business relationships, your customer. My name is Casey Trujillo, and I'll be doing this segment. You've probably already listened to the segment on MEDDPICC that Todd Kirk and myself did earlier. This is an 8-part series breaking down and getting into a little bit more detail on each component of MEDDPICC. And where we are landing on today is the E of economic buyer. Now, you have not been in customer success or an account executive very long if you have not been burned on not knowing who the economic buyer is. How many times have you been having a conversation with your customer? They are so transparent. They let you know that everything is going well. All they need to do is get the final sign off, which, verbally they have. I'll let you know next week. Next week happens and they tell you that, hey, we lost the deal. Someone else won this deal. And you're like, wait, what? I thought we had everything lined up. I did this, I did that. What took place, right? So the economic buyer, by definition, is the person that is putting the signature on that purchase order, right? On that renewal agreement. Now, how do I know who the economic buyer is? Well, there's one key component that you have to understand as you're trying to find that one person that is putting their name on the signature line. In today's market, usually decisions are done by committee. I think it's very important for you to understand that if this went wrong, if your software wasn't able to do the things that it was designed to do, that it is blame that is shared across the organization. Now, if success happens, it's easy for that economic buyer to step in and raise their hand and say, yeah, I was the one that did this. Look how great this project went. This is all the time saved. This is the money saved. This is the reduce in risk, right? Economic buyers love to take the credit, but they do not want to take the fall. So when you're walking through this with your champion, there's a couple different things you need to understand about the economic buyer. Number one, your champion will disguise themselves often as the economic buyer because an economic buyer is hard to get time with, right? The person you're working with, they might be working with 10, 12, 20 different vendors. Of course, every vendor wants to work with your economic buyer. So how do you get time with that economic buyer, right? So you actually know that you're on the right track if that economic buyer is not wanting to meet with you. Okay, that's actually a good sign letting you know that you're probably tracking down the right person. Number two, in regards to an economic buyer, is you have to show value and prove your value to your point of contact so they will lead you to the economic buyer. They will introduce you to that economic buyer. Or you need to have questions. If things aren't going well, you need to have questions that only the economic buyer could answer, but it would help your champion and you. But you're the second person in that equation. The first person that needs to help is the point of contact you're working with, because the economic buyer might be giving them the raise. They might be giving them the employee approval, that they might be going through and doing their annual assessment of how that employee is doing. If that point of contact finds what you're trying to present, even though you might not be doing well with your application, that it might not be having the success, if your point of contact is saying, hey, we need to get this in front of the economic buyer, because they're actually saying is, I see how this is going to benefit me, and then it's going to benefit you as the SaaS vendor, right? So how can I find out and get to that economic buyer? Let me give you a couple of questions that you could ask. So number one, this is a fantastic question. Who has approved projects of a similar size in the past like this one? Oh, the person that's going to actually sign off on this is, right? Fantastic question. Let me give you another one to stress test. If we both came to an agreement, is there anybody else that formally or informally needs to be involved to approve this purchase? Let me say that one more time. If we both come to an agreement, is there anybody else that formally or informally needs to be involved to approve this purchase? Okay, what that is letting you know is who else might be involved, because there might be more than one person than that economic buyer. Okay, Other things to know about the economic buyer, and this is going back to when we talked about M, for those of you that went back and listened to that, they are very business oriented. There's three key things that they're looking for. Did this make us money? Did this save us money? Or did this reduce risk? Okay. They're very business oriented. So when you're talking shop with that economic buyer, it needs to revolve around those three things. Now, Todd Kirk in our MEDDPICC conversation had this fantastic analogy where we all hear the story that you're out in the woods with a friend, a bear comes chasing. You don't need to be faster than the bear. You just need to be faster than the person that you're with, right? It's almost true sometimes in software applications, right? If let's say the CIO or the CEO or the head of sales, whoever it might be, when it comes to be doing their budget, what they might be looking at is what software applications are being used and which ones are not being used. Basically, a software application is eating up the other software applications, right? So if you can show that ROI, factual proof that is saying this is what took place. Now, again, don't discredit though the qualitative data if that executive is a very people-oriented person, right? There's some executives or some managers that it's just all about that data. That's the majority of them. But don't discount that small percent that, hey, you know what? If user satisfaction is high on this software and they would be very disgruntled if you took that away, they value that also, okay? So economic buyers, we hope that we've been able to give you some understanding about how to work with them, how to find them, how to get to them. Now, the last part I want to mention about an economic buyer is your champion has a lot of sway, or your point of contact has a lot of sway with that economic buyer. So as you are working with your admin, don't go over top of them to get to the economic buyer. That should always be your last resort. What you want to do is put in the work with your point of contact to get them to do that introduction. And it's either done in two ways. Number one, when you find that there has been a success, exploit the success. Hey, wow, that's pretty fascinating. You know, actually, your organization is performing in the top to 10% of all organizations that use our SaaS application. You're actually doing these things extremely well, better than other vertical or other organizations that are in the same vertical. So if there's something that is sincere that they're actually doing correctly and they're achieving, call that out to your champion, your point of contact, so they can get you in front of that economic buyer, because who doesn't want to share good news? Or number two, if it is bad news, if things aren't going well, and that economic buyer might even have told your POC that they're a little disgruntled, it's okay to want to have that person on the line to understand where are they frustrated, why are they frustrated, and for this to turn around, what would success look like? How would we measure that? See how we just did that? See how we're getting back to getting actual data, actual measurables, so we know what we're going for and what we're shooting for. So when we go back and follow back up and we have that time with the economic buyer, they're expecting certain results. Well, thank you again for joining us in this little segment around the economic buyer.